Well, thank you, guys.
That was really fun.
It's a nice hometown crowd.
Yeah.
I'm glad, Robert, that you're joining us. So maybe we could start with you and when this project began. I know it's been. I've heard Rick and Ethan talk about it being years in the making, but when did it start for you?
My guess would be about 12 years ago, maybe. Richard had made, I wrote the novel, Me and Orson Welles, and Richard made a movie of that that some of you may have seen. And so we know each other and we talk on the phone. And Richard said one day, well, what are you working on, Robert? And I said, I'm trying to write this thing about Lorenz Hart. And there was this pause, and he says, you know, I'm really interested in Lorenz Hart. Could I read that? And that single sentence is the reason we're all sitting here today.
That script you read is close to what you shot.
Yeah, certainly the spirit of what it was. Yeah, it was just one big, long monologue, kind of. It was early stages, but everything that's in the movie was in there, I feel. The wit, the humor, all the yearning, everything that I think is in the movie was there. But then we had the 12 years to kind of keep working on it. I sent it to Ethan at some point, I think just not to star in the movie necessarily. It was just like, look what Robert wrote. Isn't this fascinating? And it was kind of like that.
It was like an epic poem, a howl into the night of an artist's cry.
Yeah.
And
An artist who's being left behind, by the times and his partner.
Something just really, really moving to me about it. And I just felt, Rick knew a lot about Lorenz Hart. I didn't, but the writing of it was so lucid and so clear and so funny and so biting. And I just felt right off the bat that I knew this man, and I wanted to see him in a movie. And I knew that Rick would be the right person to figure out how to make a movie that would happen in real time in one night. I remember I was working here at Lincoln Center, actually, and had this great theater director that I said, hey, do you know anything about Lorenz Hart? His name's Jack O'Brien. He said, yes. And I said, well, my friend has an idea about making a movie about following him to the opening night party of Oklahoma. And Jack said, that's the greatest idea I've ever heard in my life. I called Rick up. I said, I think we got to go with this thing. This is Jack O'Brien approved.
Like, it's such a perverse idea, and it's so sad. But
it's so sad.
It's like the wedding that, your ex, you show up to your ex's wedding and you weren't invited. Oh, it's like my tagline for this movie that they didn't put on the poster, but you'll know it, is forgotten but not gone. It's not too late to use that, Michael. I want to give a shout out before we go any farther to our friends at Sony Classics, Michael, Barker, Tom Bernard, that really believed in this movie and let us make it. And our friends at Renovo, who also backed us very heroically. And my producers are here. John Sloss and Mike Blizzard are here. Graham Reynolds, who played all this piano. Beautiful soundtrack. And there's probably more, but we continue. So,
and speaking of thanking people, if this film were a song, then the metaphor would be that I wrote the words, but everybody else on this stage wrote the music. And I think it's the music that breathed life into this thing. So thank you all.
It takes both, but yeah.
I have to say that I disagree.
What do you know?
What we do is an interpretive art, and when we all arrived, we shot this in Ireland, and it's just such a fine piece of writing. It's such a staggering piece of writing, and it leans on the writing so heavily, and I'm so grateful to share this premiere with you, Robert, and to say thank you for what, just for like Andrew and I, you're seeing moments of a 25-year friendship, and it was in the writing that we could mine it show that behavior. And obviously Rick is so good at rehearsing things and working it and finding where the life lives. And for Bobby and I and for Margaret, all of us, it was a true pleasure making it, and because of the quality of the writing.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I felt like on this one, interpretive. You know, we worked on this and poured through it for so long, but I felt like I have this great cast, got this great script. I just felt like I put my like Sidney Lumet, George Roy Hill hat on, and like, okay, let's just make this work somehow with it. You know, so it was really, really fun, kind of exhilarating working with these guys. And Margaret, of course, she's not here. She's working in Europe, I think, but she was great.
Can you say a bit more about why you waited 10 years or so?
Well, Ethan was too young when he first read it. He was too young.
I remember, I'll just say it, I'll be crass for a second. I said when I read it, I said, let's make this movie. He said, not yet. I said, why not? He goes, women still want to sleep with you. And then about a decade goes by and he calls me up and he goes, yeah, I saw you on television the other night doing some corny talk show. And I was like, yeah, how'd I do? He said, you did fine, but I think we're ready to make Blue Moon. So best part of my life, but it comes with a needle, you know?
Like all good.
Yeah, like all good things.
I'd love to bring Andrew and Bobby into it too. Can you talk about casting Andrew in a very important role? Something that you both.
God, that was. I mean, this is Rogers and Hart. Who's going to play Rogers? I mean, we don't have a movie. I just feel so blessed that Andrew was available. You were shooting Knives Out at the time, and it was so nice of them to let you fly over. And
we were so scared of being hurt, we didn't want to offer it to him.
Yeah.
We were like, Andrew's got to be great, but
he's
going to turn us down.
You know, John Sloss really stayed on. Like, he's busy. He's got other things to do.
He's not going to do it.
It's a smaller part.
Yeah. And then we're like, he's doing it? Oh, my God. Oh, it's going to be a real movie now.
Yeah.
Because we take Bobby for granted.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
we've been talking about Bobby for 12 years.
The
Like,
first time
Bobby
we read it, we're
has
like,
to be.
Bobby has to be in this. But we were like, you know.
But Andrew was like, oh, my God.
And Bobby and I are neighbors, and he knew he'd have hell to pay if he didn't do it. I'd be like, he passes me on the way to work every day. He had to do it.
Plus, they were like, it's a movie about a bartender.
Andrew, I'm curious to hear what was your reaction to reading the script?
Oh, I just thought the script was so beautiful. We were just talking about it there. It gets me every time. Just the specificity of the writing is just beautiful. But of course, I was working with Rick and Ethan was the thing that I was just incredibly excited about. You know, their partnership is a little bit like the partnership in the movie. It's just a partnership that we all adore. You know, and so that was the big thrill for me, and it was just amazing to be able to watch them at work and to support this extraordinary leading performance, you know.
Robert, I mean, when you wrote the film, did you think that this would be something that you would send to Rick?
Well,
it is in real time, and
yeah, no, and I remember when we were in Ireland, and I was there for 2 weeks of the rehearsing, and I remember Rick and I were, it was the end of the day, and we're tired, and the cab is taking us to our respective places we're staying. And I remember saying to Rick in the cab, I said, you know, you're the only director in the world who would have made this script. And I think that's really true. You know, I think it just, I think anybody else would have been flipping through it and saying, well, when do they get out of the bar? You know, and you know, 14 minutes in the coat room, you're going to do this? And Rick never said anything like that to me. It was, I was
Rick,
lucky. You know?
Can you say a bit more about that? You worked often with these like condensed time frames, but not always. Now you also have like a confined space. Actually, I'm thinking of a film that both of you made, Tape.
Yeah.
Which actually had both those things in operation as well.
Exactly. From 2001, Ethan and I had done a movie for like shot in 6 days, $100,000 budget. Yeah, in one little motel room. So this is like our bigger budget tape, right? We had a
This is like
we
our
built a
Lawrence of
set.
Arabia.
Yeah, compared to that, we had a luxurious 15-day schedule. I say that ironically. Yeah, so it was a challenge. Like I had always had these kind of condensed, 24 hours, 18 hours, 12 hours, and then tape. It was like, man, we just go real time, And we ended up doing that only a few years later in Before Sunset, the second of that. That was kind of a real time. So I don't know. That's something like purely cinematic in my mind, just capturing reality. Like cinema does that well, but it sounds really boring. You have to really make what you're doing somehow compelling and seem natural, but it takes a lot of rehearsal, a lot of structure and work goes into that, I think. But that it's a big challenge. You're kind of painted in a corner by definition from the very beginning. You can't cut much. You can't cut a scene. You can't move things around. It all has to work. That's why we rehearse a lot, and we kind of get it to work. I feel like in pre-production and on weekends and up to the moment of shooting, it's always kind of in process. But it's pretty exhilarating.
I've said, Rick's heard me say this before because one of my favorite moments working, we were doing a Q&A for Boyhood, and it was right in that the throes, the movie was kind of becoming successful, and they'd moved it from the little theater, one of these megaplexes, to the bigger theater, and they'd actually kicked out Planet of the Apes to play Boyhood, and we were doing a Q&A like this afterwards, and there's a scene in the movie where I skip a stone, and I get several good skips on it, and somebody raised their hand and said, "How did you get the stone to skip that many times?" And I remember thinking, wow, one day ago, there was a Planet of the Apes, and Rick has gotten people impressed with stone skipping. And this is what I love about his movies, is just an interest in actual life. It doesn't need to be hyperbolized. Our actual existence is thrilling and miraculous, and our actual conversations, our actual love affairs, and our actual friendships are revelatory and enough to make cinema out of. And he does a weird trick of getting you interested in.
Oh, thank you. And that stone skipping, that was CGI, right?
No. 17 skips. It was impressive.
Not that.
That I always like that line in this movie when Ethan makes the toast to E.B. White, and he says, "To the poetry that pours down on us from 1,000 unexpected sources," because I thought that's the picture, and you do that nicely.
Thank you. It was a well-written line. We're here to impress.
Ethan, I wanted to hear you maybe talk a bit more about this performance, which it's quite a physical transformation, obviously, but also I think quite a different performance style, certainly in many of your films, but certainly in the films that you've done with Rick, which I think are in a much more like naturalistic register, and this is quite a stylized performance.
It's funny, Robert said no one else would have directed this script, and no one else would have cast me. They really wouldn't have. It's built on the back of our friendship and about how well he actually knows me. And you said it when we first met. It was like, oh, this person is inside of you. What would you call it? An imp? My imp. It was my inner imp, he said. And it was. And Rick knew it. I immediately wanted to do this. And luckily for me, we made the joke about waiting, but something has happened in the last, 15 years of my acting life, which is when Rick and I first met, I was obsessed with naturalism. If a part required an accent, I didn't want to do it. I felt like get a different actor, who has that accent. I really wanted to have like no lies between me and the camera. And as I grew older, I realized that everything about the artifice of our personalities could be called a lie. There is an essence of us, but what is naturalism started to change its definition for me, and the arbitrariness of how we speak and what clothes we wear and how we identify as ourselves. It is so much more flexible than we thought. In the last 15 years, I've really been getting more and more interested in what people call character acting, but it's what I would say is just a more expansive view of the self. And so I've gotten to learn about hair and makeup, and through my experience in the theater, learn about voice and movement, and to get to use what I've learned over the last 25, 30 years with the person I've collaborated with the most to kind of bring that to set. Felt exciting because this was a different game for us, the two of us.
Bobby or Andrew, would you like to add to Ethan's observations?
I think it's really interesting. I kind of agree with what Ethan is saying. Like, you assume that acting is pretending to be somebody else, which in some level it is. But the more I act, the more I sort of believe that it's just about experimenting with different sides of yourself, but there's a great pleasure in it, and you can take risks with yourself, and because in some ways you remain safe, in some ways, even though you're putting yourself in some sort of degree of danger, but you're able to play around a bit. And I think maybe as you get older, you see just different facets of yourself, and so actually it becomes hopefully a little bit easier because you're not being as effortful. I don't know. It's an interesting one. I suppose it's different for lots of different actors.
I'll just say it's an amazing through line for me because I think we met 25 years ago doing this play. I mean, I'm sitting here at the New York Film Festival in a movie about the theater. We met doing a play 25 years ago. That's how I met Rick, and it's an amazing journey to be here.
It is interesting. I first saw Andrew playing Hamlet and wrote his name down like in my journal when I got back because I have to work with that guy. And so all of us come from a theater background and a love of it. In Hurly Burly, where Bobby and I became friends, was the first time I'd really ran a play for a long time. And you learn a lot about the levels of relaxation that are possible to achieve. When you're young, acting teachers and things tell you to relax. You have no idea what they mean. You just have no idea what they mean. And what's wonderful about a long run is you start to not worry about the lines. You start to not worry about the behavior. You start to actually live on stage. And once you have that feeling, you know when you don't have it. You know when it's not there. And so what we try to do is bring that in front of Rick's lens. It's just a level of relaxation, a level of playfulness, a level of experimentation, and a flexibility. I can do this, I can do that, I can be over here, I can be over there. Whereas when I was younger, I had a more rigid idea of what was right and wrong.
It's playfulness. I say this endlessly, but you're required to play a part. That's what you do. And when you ask a child to play, there's no effort involved in it. So it's. I think as we become older, we feel like we need to know much more stuff, and kids are great at asking questions and saying I don't know, and that's what I think we have to try and do as actors, is to say as playful and as childish as possible.
Well, congratulations to all of you on this wonderful film, and thank you for this beautiful screening.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for
Love
having
the New York
us.
Film Festival.
Thank you, guys.